All right, there we go.
Ash, hi everyone. It's been great to see stuff happening with design tokens and Figma and syncs and all of that lovely stuff. Question probably mostly for Ian. I'd love to have a little bit more clarity on what that first sync will look like because we've got
Yeah,
some in there in this pilot library, and I'm wondering what that first push is going to do to that ones that already exist.
yeah. So I can tell you what I have experienced so far is I set up a test design file with some extraneous library or collections that I just wanted to test that it didn't randomly touch other things or change IDs or anything like that. And then I got sync working with a single mode. Uh, multiple modes is possible. It's just more complicated. And it maintained the collection and variable IDs. Didn't touch the existing stuff. So it looks like it's working the way it does. I'm just working through getting it to work with both modes, and then also in a way where we can kind of plug in as many collections as we want. Um, so it's looking possible. It's just not ready to fully test it yet.
Oh, that gave when you were talking about that then, that gave me an idea.
Would love to hear it.
So it's leaving the old ones. They're already there.
Yeah.
Then in Figma, we could just go, hey, point to this. Oh no, the end one. All right, never mind. Cool. Let's find out. Let's see if we
Yeah.
can push like deliberately, if there's a way we can deliberately push to a existing
Yeah. Let me
existing one. And
let me find that screenshot that I sent you guys. Because that kind of illustrates it. Why can I not navigate in Slack today? Here it is. Copy image. I'll just drop it in the chat if it lets me paste images. Nope. All right. Well, I'm gonna put it in here. Like there we go. Okay, so this is what happened. I dropped this in the Google Doc. This is when I did this import. This is just a single mode. The black and white variables were already existed, and they existed in the tokens JSON as well. And so what the script did is it found the existing ones and then used the existing ID. So those IDs didn't change and the values didn't change. And then it put in all the other ones, and you can see alias is working as well. Multiple levels of aliases too. So that's what I have currently working. I'm just working on getting this to work with multiple modes. It's like Figma just doesn't want people to do multiple modes with their API and like plugin API and stuff. It is such a headache, but it's possible.
nice. And was this a plugin API or was this the REST API?
This is the plugin API. The REST API, it was not possible. Well, it was possible, but it was possible in the worst way. Basically, for every if we wanted to do it with the REST API, we had to identify all of the aliases and then make a separate API call for every alias to like track its parent, and then you would need to make another API call to get the correct ID. And so it would have been just the worst. So Scott and I were like, bail, 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 bail. Not happening. We're not doing this. So
Is that something we can raise with
in.
Figma, Chris? Because that was kind of a big selling point of our significantly increased costs.
You're muted.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that we should be raising. I think you're right. It was a big part of that decision.
I mean, I bet you they're working on it. Like look at the conference this year. A whole day there's an entire design systems track. Like they know people want this. They have to know. I bet it's coming. It's just not out yet, is my guess. But yes, raising it would be a great idea.
I guess how does it affect us right now? I guess like let's say they add this in the future, but it's going to be 3 months from now. I'm making all this up, obviously, but like
yeah, if it's 3 months from now, we go, okay, that's like unfortunate timing. Now we go back to doing it with the REST API, and here we come full circle. But if it's a year and a half from now, then we use the plugin till that comes out, and we can make it better. I think we just have to operate on the assumption that it doesn't exist until it does.
and this goes back to basically some kind of manual process being a requirement until there's some change to the API.
No, the plugin works. The plugin should do it without a manual process.
No, a human still has to run the
I'm sorry.
the file,
Yeah,
run the
right.
plugin.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because there is a human that has to click a button in a plugin. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So then I think the conversation going on in Slack is about the tokens we're starting with and sort of adding tokens to a couple of components as well as through Figma. How is this something that we're ready for? Both the syncing and in token decisions.
You're gonna have to ask that question again. Sorry, Chris. I was too busy giggling at mine and Sasha's jokes.
Basically, are we ready to implement tokens inside of the three components that we've identified? Both implement them in Figma and GitLab UI. Or is that an answer that, or is that something that we can't answer right now?
From the plugin standpoint, I probably need the rest of the week to cook on that to get it fully working. But I think from my standpoint, I think we're good to jump in.
Dan, what do you think?
I want to make sure that I want to limit the amount of fixing I have to do. So I know for these files, or these components in particular, the tokens that we'll need to make them aren't just specific to those components. They can be used in much more generic things. So I'd expect to see designers start to stumble across them and use them in their files. If this first push requires rework of every time a token is used, if it's just a new UI kit, fine, whatever. It'll take one of us a couple of hours. But if it's then actually designers are starting to use some of these tokens directly, then I've got to go into all of their files, rejig them, rework them, and all of that sort of stuff. So if we've got a high degree of confidence that that first push is going to keep things that are manually added intact, then I can't see any issues with getting those two components using design tokens for color. But if not, we might want to hold off to prevent some painful early interactions.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the main concern is altering existing design.
the main concern is if designers start to use the tokens directly, which some of them is like the semantic type ones.
The new ones that we would be implementing in the next milestone.
Yeah.
Should we tell them not to, or like, I guess, is there any value in having, like, we're talking about implementing across 3 components. I get the impression the bigger, I'm wondering, is there any value to having them work with tokens or these 3 components in the immediate near term? This is more of like a testing of our process, and we should actually have them wait a milestone until we ask them to start using them. Would we save ourselves some headache to say, just don't touch them yet? You can touch them in a month.
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
That idea.
Yeah, probably. We've already got the file that they're going to go into is already being used by designers though as well. So it's if it's not there, it's somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But
right, so maybe at the very least, we need to sort of tell people what's going on and like, hey, you're going to start seeing these tokens appearing. Here, we'll be. So we'll need to say something like, hey, we're going to be using them in these 3 components. If you use these 3 components, you'll start seeing these tokens appear. This is essentially what it means. And then I suppose provide them guidance around just, they'll be in your files, but don't use them for your designs. They're just part of the components for now.
I don't have big concerns.
Okay.
We'll be able to do something.
I just saw your question there, Sasha. If you guys want to see, I can show you the plugin. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Awesome. So here's the collection that we'll pull stuff into. This is like another collection. We should never see this token or variable update. And then when we hit, let's just make sure that that's good. Okay. When we hit import, right now I've got some weird thing where it like hiccups every once in a while, and I got to figure out a way around that, but it's pulling in everything. You see it's all working for the default theme. Just have to hit it a few times to get it to fully work. But it's pulling in all these constants, and then there's a few here that are using them, and they're being nested in different places.
Awesome. That looks cool.
So yeah, it exists.
We did believe you. Okay, I didn't, but no,
yeah,
just joking.
I figured.
If you need like any testing or whatever, let me know.
We'll do.
If
Yeah,
you
once
need,
I get
like,
it to
other...
the point. Right now, there's a few things that are just kind of hard coded, and I'm like I said, I'm still working on getting both modes to work. But once I get it to the point where you can just kind of drop in the collection name and then drop in like some JSON or something, I'll shoot it out to you guys.
Cool.
Hopefully, I'm shooting for end of the week to have it at least in a beta point where we can start playing with it. And then long term, I would love to. I was chatting with Jeremy about this. I think it'd be awesome if we just publish this, let people use it.
I also think that would be a fantastic idea.
Even if it was a not a plugin, but almost like a something that generates something that you can paste into the console in Figma, and it just does it. So it's like for very explicitly for, hey, if you know what you're doing, use this and it'll help you.
Yeah.
Rather than, hey, here's this polished thing that we're gonna maintain and look after for everybody.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if it I suppose if it kind of depends on what they want to do with the REST API. Because if they do go that route, then the plugin will be short-lived. But yeah, even to just kind of put it up, put a repo out there and go, hey, look, it's possible. Here you go.
And then you can talk about it on stage, config 2025.
That would actually be fun.
That would be fun, but that means they haven't fixed anything.
Yeah, exactly.
API. Or haven't updated it.
Token Studio entered the chat.
Yeah.
All right, should we move on here?
I think so.
Great. Okay, so I think over the past week, Tori shared some feedback with myself, Dan, and Jeremy about just sort of a collection of, it's a collection of feedback and comments that she has heard from managers and leaders here about working with the design system. It's linked into the notes as well as sort of my attempt to kind of categorize the different comments. I think that, I think the biggest takeaway, I guess, is that design systems is now its own separate design team or UX team. And there is going to be an expectation that we are sort of acknowledging problems, laying out a plan to address them or prioritize them. I think that's sort of like my biggest takeaway from these things, sort of recognizing that tokens in dark mode is still the biggest priority. And so, it almost feels like it's less about directly addressing any of these issues and more about just sort of calling out that, hey, we're aware, here's our plan, here's what we want to do about this stuff eventually. Dan, I know you've shared some thoughts with me about some of these things, kind of along the lines of we don't really know what the design system is for, who it's for, what sort of we don't have like internal alignment within the team on our role around some of these things, which definitely feels like a pretty big thing. Aren't really in a place to communicate outwards, and almost until we figure that out. So I guess two things I should mention here. One thing really, we've got a meeting with, I've got a meeting with Jeff and IP later this week, where I'm just going to share this feedback as well and sort of say, hey, here's some of our incoming about the design system to make sure that they are aware of it. Sort of with the idea that anything we do here needs to be done together with engineering and product. But then the hope is that we could sort of figure out some of these areas to just kind of focus on in the near term. I think, I guess at this point, I would pretty much ask you guys to take a look at the feedback document that I linked and kind of basically leave some notes if I have sort of described something incorrectly or sort of our thoughts or plans incorrectly. I think that's the main thing that I'm worried about here. Because otherwise, I think it's sort of there's an effort, we need to put in an effort in place to kind of figure out, okay, where are we going to focus? Do we want to focus on this topic of contributions? Do we just want to focus on figuring out our own internal vision? Do we actually want to make something easier or not? I think that's all still kind of unclear right now.
Have we...
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Go on.
I was just going to ask for your thoughts on this since you've seen it before this meeting.
I'm still not sure I've got a clear answer on what what the goals are for designers contributing to the design system. What's the hope that designers contributing will achieve?
I don't know if there is a clear outcome has not been given to me. It does feel like it kind of falls on back on this sort of general idea that the design the design system itself is a way that we can improve the quality of GitLab, the GitLab product, and there's too much work to do for just the foundations team, just for the design systems team. And so other designers, everyone needs to sort of jump in and help out.
Okay.
The concern from this was brought up in the design managers meeting on Monday, specifically around the idea of of quality, of just UI quality, but also interaction quality, usability decisions, things like that. There was, I think there is also sort of an idea that in some ways we are leaning on the design system too much. Like all UIs must just be Legos built out of components, and that any deviation is bad, like that we're only doing board solutions. But then it was also raised that, well, the process of modifying or updating the design system is so cumbersome that we just don't want to do that. It takes so much time and effort. And so design approaches. One is sort of Legos using entirely components. The others is completely custom, not touching the design system at all. Because if you just want to extend a single component or a single element, that's such a pain that it's best just to avoid it entirely.
Yeah, ideally we'd live in the middle, huh?
Well, I guess well, to be fair, we don't know what ideal is for us.
Yeah, true.
One sec, I gotta get a drink of water here.
Go on, Ian. What were you going to say?
I'm still formulating it in my mind, but in terms of contributions, I mean, ideally, you'd think we'd want it to be easy to start the process of contributing, but we also want to gatekeep changes made to the design system. I don't like how I said that, but I think you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
There's probably a better word than gatekeep, but
yeah,
I get the idea.
There is.
It's the
but it's also kind of the right word too, in a sense.
You can use quality control, because if one of the thinking is if the design system is the so I disagree with this statement, but if you agree with the statement that the design system is a solution for quality, then stuff getting into the design system needs to have quality control. So you can use that instead of gatekeep.
Deal.
Oh, I don't like it at all, Chris. I don't like any of this framing, and it's all weird.
Yeah.
Something's off with that and all.
Yeah, I think, okay, well, I do think, there is clearly there are clearly, I think the relationship between the rest of the design team and the design system is not the best right now. that there's something to focus on there. Even if it's just a perception thing, this idea that you just need to use exactly what's in the design system, and if you branch out of it, it's going to be just a ton of extra work. That doesn't feel productive, right? Like, because I get the impression that we want, or like, Jeremy's talked about these different sort of paces, right? The design system is supposed to move slower than product, and so we want product teams to move fast and experiment. So how can we support that and then pull successful experiments into the design system, right? I guess for me, it's not clear how we pull successful experiments into the design system.
Yeah. That's
I think
something that I'll go ahead, Ian. Go on.
I think the pulling successful things into the design system is a process of kind of continually evaluating the state of the application and the product, and yeah, pulling in what we want to be the UI standard into the design system, and then kind of as like letting them cook quickly, and then as we get time to come along and evaluate those fast changes that have been made, we can either pull it into the design system or adjust it if we need to.
And it makes me wonder, is that possible right now? Like I'm making this up, if someone wanted to do something new with a drop-down component, can they do that in a way that sort of lets them experiment and lets us pull it in?
Yeah, they stick a bunch of utility classes on it in the product.
Mhm.
They rebuild they wrap it up in something in a view file somewhere in the product. I think I don't think there's anything stopping people doing whatever the flip they want. And the fact that there's 4 paper cuts designers fixing the same bugs every 6 weeks is evidence enough that people
Is
can do
evidence that it's happening?
whatever they want in the product. I said that for a joke. They don't really do that.
No, but it's funny enough because while you said that, I looked at the merge request widget again, and I found another issue, and I just fixed this like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's true. Sometimes we fix things over and over again, but I think it's fine.
But my main thing isn't so much that it's hard for the product to do what it wants. It's the thing that's I've always found really surprising is there's no intake flow for the design system. So a bug appears in a GitLab UI component. It goes into the GitLab UI project, and if someone feels happy, they pick it up. But it's never brought in as milestone work. Same, a bug appears in a Figma component. Someone might fix it if they fancy it, or it just lives for eternity. A designer asks foundations, "Hey, I'm trying to do this kind of thing," and we go, "Oh, yeah, we don't have something for that." There's no like intake process where we go, "Oh, you've got a request for something. Let us make a decision if we're going to make a change to the design system or not." Or you've got some feedback because you're using these things. Let's see what we're going to do as a result of it. Or a sit down every 3 months and go, "Hey, here are we see lots of teams trying to do ABC thing. Here's how we're going to address it over the next quarter." I don't think designer contributions plays into that at all. I think there's a separate thing, but that's something that's surprised me anyway, is this lack of intake flow.
Well, I think I actually kind of feel like it does play into it. Anything that we would intake should be a contribution. Like, I think a lot of our recent conversations have focused on contributions as like directly authoring or editing a component. but there's a lot of ways that people can interact with the design system, and it doesn't have to just be writing code directly themselves. It feels like if we had an intake process or sort of more clearly defined ways of discussing and deciding on proposals, that could also be a way to get more contribution. Just acknowledging that there's a bunch of different types out there. Someone can make a design proposal and then say, hey, I'm not, I can't, I feel like it should be perfectly valid for someone to say, here's my idea. I think it'll make this thing better, but I don't have the bandwidth to fully develop it myself, and then it sort of goes into our prioritization as a central design team.
Yeah, or even better, here's the thing I found works in the product, and here are 2 other teams who are also achieving similar by doing something in the product, abstracted into something that all 3 of us can use.
Yeah,
is even better, rather than, hey, I've got an idea and I want to do this thing. Because those, to me, my response would be, yeah, go ahead, let us know if it works. If it works and other people want to do it, then we can, as a design system, can take it on, maintain it, look after it. But if you just want someone else to design and build something for you, who are we to do that? I don't know your users of your product areas and all of their jobs to be done. Let us help you see if there's something that exists, or if you got to make something yourself. One other spicy take is, if we count pajamas maintainers as the maintainers of design.gitlab.com, there are 5 of those, and only 1 of them is in the foundations team. So how do they all fit in? And should we be asking them why they're not encouraging more contributors?
I think that's a great question, and this does point to perhaps redefining the expectations or role of a maintainer.
I refer you back to point 1. Pajamas does not know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think this is a topic that we will be revisiting over the next few weeks and months until we can kind of come back to it. To me, this feels very like visiony and roadmap-y for the team, kind of extending well into next year. And so I think my next steps are basically giving this feedback to IP and Jeff to talk about it with them, and then kind of figure out when and how we're going to be able to honestly do more than just sort of think and discuss it. I know Jeff has been a big proponent of sort of focusing in on one thing, and there's a lot of that I agree with. I think in design we naturally have to sort of think ahead of time at the same time, but there's a lot here that I feel like would be a distraction when we are still just getting started with tokens and not even getting started with dark mode yet. All right, does anyone have anything else you want to discuss before we end the meeting here? No. All right.
Just just one thing regarding dark mode. So I just saw your comment before the meeting. So do we target 17.1 for the explanation stuff, or
what do you mean explanation stuff?
I mean, like, it's just, like for me to try to allocate some time for those things. Is
Yeah.
it still the case that we will start with it, like kickstart it in 17.1?
Yes. According to the original plan, Jeremy is leading the dark mode vision in 17.1 and 17.2, with Sasha, you, and Dan supporting. So yeah, I would expect your time to really be focusing on that in 17.1. Obviously, I'm not your manager, so but yeah, I'd really be expecting that to be kicking off on Monday.
Perfect.
And then 17.3 is when we're planning for the rest of paper cuts to get really involved with that. So, sometime between now and then, it sounds like we need to have the collection of tasks and issues for the rest of the team to pick up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then I think that's also working together with Dan to figure out where we are with tokens, because we also talked about how tokens needs to be implemented in Figma before we can start designing dark mode components in Figma. Oh no, you're shaking your head. Is that not the case?
No, I
I
don't.
guess it's different now with UIKit too, isn't it?
No. Don't talk to me about UIKit too.
Okay.
So exploring, designing, and implementing, I think, are three different things. We can explore them and we can design them without design tokens, but designing them, understanding the design tokens will likely give us the best wins for like exploration of the art of what's possible, what looks good, what feels good. I don't think any design token work needs to be done. And in fact, I probably prefer to see it done the opposite, that we just ignore design tokens and light mode and just go, if we had no constraints, how would we want it to look? And then go, okay, because light mode work how it does, and we've got the design tokens that we do and we want to use them this way, what's the compromises that gets us to a good spot?
I agree with that entirely. And my understanding is that would happen between the three of you, Sasha, Dan, and Jeremy, in 17.1 and 17.2. But then when the rest of paper cuts gets involved, that's when we'll need to design every single component in dark mode. And so yeah, that exploration, you're right, doesn't need tokens, but it seems like I thought that basically when the full paper cuts team gets involved, that's when tokens needed to be ready so that we could actually start designing the final dark mode alert banners. Final in air quotes.
So. Yeah, why not?
I mean, it's a little soon to be sort of talking about that exactly. I think this is the stuff to be figuring out over the next 2 milestones. I figure we'll have more times to talk about how dark mode is shaping up, and we can plan the rest of the team's involvement in a few weeks here. Okay, great. All right, well, I will share this recording on Unfiltered when it is all processed.
Hello, YouTube.
Yeah, see you, everyone.
See ya.